A license is an agreement in which the supplier authorizes the customer to use certain functions of the purchased products within a defined validity period. Because of the diverse range of sales scenarios and policies, Huawei provides various licenses for its routers. First, let's see how licenses are classified. Licenses are either commercial or non-commercial. Commercial licenses, as the name suggests, can be used in commercial projects and can also be used in testing, including beta tests and certification. The validity period of licenses lasts either for a fixed term or permanently. At present, the licenses purchased for Huawei routers and used for commercial projects are permanent licenses, also called permanent commercial licenses. Licenses can also be classified according to the object they activate. If no license file is available, the trial license can be used. Huawei devices come with a pre-installed license that activates certain functions for trial use. This is called a trial license. A trial license can be enabled twice for each R version and can be used for up to 90 days each time it is enabled. When the trial period ends, the features controlled by the trial license become invalid immediately or after the device is restarted. If a license file has been applied for, it may contain hardware right-to-use (RTU) licenses, function control service licenses, and resource control service licenses. Let's look at the hardware RTU licenses first. These licenses control the permission to use ports on boards or on box-shaped devices. Ports such as 10GE and 25GE ports on boards or devices sold in consumption model (CM) are restricted until hardware RTU licenses are activated. The restrictions may include limiting the bandwidth of Ethernet ports to 100 megabytes per second, preventing them from going up, limiting the bandwidth of POS ports to 5 megabytes per second, or preventing serial ports from being created on E1 ports. Take an 8x400G board as an example. If you purchase 8 hardware RTU licenses, each with 50 gigabits per second bandwidth, you can activate only one port on the board. To activate another 4 ports, you need to purchase 32 more hardware RTU licenses, each with 50 gigabits per second bandwidth. Now let's take a look at 2 types of service licenses. Function control service licenses take effect across the entire system, and because they're activated along with the license file, they don't require separate activation. For example, an SRv6 function control service license allows SRv6 to be enabled globally on a device. Resource control service licenses take effect only on the boards or ports to which they are allocated. These licenses are sold by board, port bandwidth, number of users, or number of tunnels. For example, 250G EVPN resource control service licenses allow EVPN services to be enabled on one 100GE port. If you wanted to enable EVPN services on 4 100GE ports, you would need 8 50G EVPN resource control service licenses. One service may have both function control and resource control service licenses, sold by device and by resource respectively. These 2 types of licenses are typically independent of each other for the same service. For SRv6 services, if you activate the SRv6 function control service license for a device, you no longer need to activate an SRv6 resource control service license for each port on the device. Licenses can also be classified into control items and sales items. A control item directly controls the device, whereas a sales item contains one or more control items. For example, this is a sales item that contains 12 10G port-enable RTU licenses. Because the system software package must be modified before control items can be added, these items remain unchanged after a version is released. Conversely, sales items can be added because they are subject to sales strategies. You can typically determine which control items are contained in a sales item from its description. You can also use the License Query tool, run the Display License command on the device, or contact Huawei engineers who can log in to the PDM system. Licenses directly control devices' software and hardware functions, meaning that the license states are very important. If a device ships without a loaded license or a license file fails to be activated, the license state is default. If a permanent commercial license file is activated on a device, the license state is normal, whereas if a fixed-term license file is activated, the state is demo. The license state shifts from demo to trial when the fixed-term license becomes invalid. In trial state, the license module is allowed to run based on the authorization strategy in normal or demo state. After the state changes from normal or demo to trial, the license remains in the trial state for a 60-day grace period. If a trial license is activated in default state, the license state also shifts to trial, which lasts for 90 days. Huawei licenses also have an emergency state, which can be considered as a temporary state when license control items are not under restriction. In this state, the device runs with the maximum specifications of existing dynamic resource items. For some earlier versions, resource items not included in the license file are not controlled. The emergency mode can be enabled up to 3 times for each version and for 7 days each time. It is typically used for major natural disasters or other emergencies. Demo, normal, and trial states can shift to emergency state. A 60-day grace period is applied if the license module enters the trial state from the demo state. This is extended for a further 60 days if the license revoke command is run before the grace period expires. Before the second grace period expires, the emergency mode can also be enabled up to 3 times. This means that, theoretically, there is a buffer period of 141 days, 60 plus 60 plus 21, after a license becomes invalid. In this case, you are advised to apply for a permanent commercial license as soon as possible. In addition to selling devices, router sales personnel sell software and licenses. Each signed project sales contract contains license quotation items. The contract administrator of the supply chain records the contract order into the ERP system. The ESTP platform synchronizes data from the ERP system and automatically generates entitlements based on the order. An independent entitlement is generated for each quotation item. Scenario 1. Technical support engineers select and bind entitlements for each device on the ESTP platform. They then generate and download a license file, upload the license file to the corresponding device, and activate the license file. This scenario mainly applies to the X4, X8, X16, NE9000, and NE5000E. It also applies to separate parts, such as when a device set is purchased through multiple orders or bills of quotation, BOQs. Scenario 2. A license file is obtained, loaded, and activated during the production phase. This scenario mainly applies to box-shaped devices. The ESTP platform enables Huawei technical support engineers to apply for, split, and merge licenses. For details, see Huawei Router License Operation Guide.